Thompson walked through the bustling streets of downtown, a world away from the luxury that was his life. Disguised in worn-out jeans and a faded t-shirt, he felt the weight of anonymity settle around him like a warm blanket. The city thrummed with energy, the sounds of honking cars, chattering pedestrians, and the distant wail of sirens formed a chaotic symphony that echoed in his ears. As he navigated the throng, he couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder in a world he had always observed from a distance. Jack paused at a street corner, observing the people around him. A mother juggled a squirming toddler on her hip while balancing a grocery bag in the other hand. A group of teenagers laughed and pushed each other playfully, the carefree nature of their youth contrasting sharply with his own disillusionment. He felt a pang of envy as he watched a couple share a moment of intimacy, their eyes reflecting a joy he had long since lost. The truth was, despite his immense wealth, he felt disconnected from the very essence of life that these strangers seemed to embody. "This is what you wanted, right?" he muttered to himself, recalling his father's proud declaration when he had inherited the family fortune. To understand the real world, but understanding it from the outside, like a ghost wandering through the living, was not what he had envisioned. Jack sighed, his breath a puff of fog in the crisp autumn air. He needed to find a way to immerse himself in this reality, to feel the warmth of genuine connections that seemed to elude him. After walking for several more blocks, he spotted a quaint diner nestled between two skyscrapers. Its neon sign flickered intermittently, casting a soft glow on the cracked pavement. The enticing aroma of coffee and fried food wafted through the open door, beckoning him inside. Jack hesitated for a moment, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Would he be able to blend in? Would anyone notice that he was different? He took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The diner was a cozy haven, filled with the sounds of sizzling bacon and the clinking of dishes. It was a stark contrast to the high-end restaurants he was accustomed to. As he stepped inside, he was greeted by the warm smiles of the staff and the cheerful chatter of patrons. Jack slid onto a bar stool at the counter, tucking his hands into his pockets to suppress the urge to fidget. "Welcome! What can I get you?" a cheerful voice chimed. Jack looked up to find a young woman with bright blue eyes and a friendly smile. She wore a simple white apron over a faded blouse, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. There was something comforting about her presence, something that made him feel at ease. "I'll have a coffee, please," he replied, his voice steadier than he expected. "Coming right up," she said, bustling off to the coffee machine. As he watched her move, he couldn't help but admire the way she interacted with the other customers, bringing laughter and warmth to each table, her energy infectious. "Here you go," she said, returning with a steaming cup. "You look like you could use a little pick-me-up." Jack chuckled softly, taking the cup from her. "You have no idea. This is the first real coffee I've had in days." "Really? Where have you been getting your coffee?" she asked, leaning against the counter with an amused expression. "Let's just say it's been lacking in flavor," he admitted, feeling a playful spark in their exchange. "I think I've been living off instant coffee and takeout." "Yikes! You've got to treat yourself better than that. Life's too short for bad coffee," she exclaimed, her laughter brightening the atmosphere around them. "I'll take that advice to heart," Jack replied, intrigued by her easygoing nature. "So, what's your name?" "Emily, and you?" "Jack," he said, offering a casual smile. "Nice to meet you, Emily." As they spoke, Jack felt a connection forming, a thread of familiarity weaving between them. He found himself drawn to her spirit, her laughter infectious in a way that made him forget his worries. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he belonged, even if just for a fleeting moment. Jack continued to sip his coffee, glancing around the diner as he listened to Emily recount tales of her day. She shared stories of quirky customers and the occasional mishaps in the kitchen, her animated expressions painting vivid pictures. Jack laughed along with her, feeling the heaviness of his own life lift if only briefly. "Do you work here all the time?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Pretty much. It helps pay the bills," she replied, her tone shifting slightly. "My family relies on me a lot, so I pick up as many shifts as I can. It can be exhausting, but I love it." "Sounds like a lot of responsibility," he said, his heart aching a little for her. "But you seem to handle it well." "Thanks. I try to stay positive. It's all about finding joy in the little things, you know?" Emily beamed, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "And besides, the people here make it worthwhile. There's always someone who needs a smile or a chat." Jack nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. It was refreshing to hear someone speak so highly of life's simple pleasures. He realized that his previous encounters, filled with superficial interactions and hollow conversations, had left him yearning for authenticity. As Emily moved on to serve other customers, Jack watched her interact with ease, her kindness evident in every gesture. She poured coffee, wiped tables, and exchanged jokes with the regulars, her laughter ringing like music in the air. He admired how she treated everyone with respect, no matter their background, and how her genuine nature seemed to brighten even the dullest of days. With each passing moment, Jack felt a desire to know more about her life. He wanted to understand her struggles and triumphs, to uncover the layers beneath her warm exterior. The thought of leaving the diner without a trace of her lingered in his mind, and he found himself determined to return. As he finished his coffee, he glanced at Emily, who was wiping down the counter with a focused expression. She caught his eye, and they exchanged a brief smile that spoke volumes, inviting the possibility of something more. Jack stood up, placing a few crumpled bills on the counter. "Thanks for the coffee, Emily. I really enjoyed our chat," he said, his voice sincere. "Anytime, Jack. Come back soon," she called after him, her cheerful tone lingering in the air long after he stepped outside. Jack walked away from the diner with a newfound sense of purpose. He had come seeking authenticity, and he had found it in Emily. The connection they shared, however brief, had ignited a spark within him. He knew he would return, not just for the coffee, but for the chance to explore the depths of her world. As he made his way back into the bustling streets, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something significant. The weight of his wealth felt lighter, the burden of his life less daunting. Perhaps in seeking to understand the real world, he had started to uncover something far more valuable, the potential for genuine connection, love, and understanding in a world filled with disparity. Jack Thompson found himself drawn back to the diner every evening, each visit becoming a ritual that filled him with a sense of purpose he'd never known. He slid into the same booth in the corner, the worn leather still warm from the previous customer's touch. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and grilled sandwiches wrapped around him like a familiar blanket. As he waited, his mind wandered to Emily Parker, the waitress who had unwittingly captured his attention and affection. When she approached, her smile was wide and genuine, the kind that could brighten the dullest of days. "Back for more, huh?" she teased, her brown eyes sparkling with mischief. "I'm starting to think you might actually like this place." Jack chuckled, leaning back in his seat. "Guilty as charged. I guess I'm just a sucker for good coffee and even better company." Emily raised an eyebrow, her playful demeanor never wavering. "Flattery will get you everywhere. What'll it be today?" "The usual." "Absolutely. But I'm also curious about that pie I keep hearing whispers about. What's your recommendation?" She laughed, a sound that danced through the air like music. "You can't go wrong with the cherry pie. It's practically a local legend. Just don't blame me if you end up addicted." As she turned to get his order, Jack couldn't help but admire her. The way she moved with purpose, the effortless grace in her actions, reminded him of the people he once knew in his privileged life. But they felt worlds apart. He was enchanted by Emily's authenticity, the rawness of her reality, and the strength that radiated from her, even in the face of hardship. Over the next few weeks, their casual conversations blossomed into a deeper friendship. Jack learned about her family's struggles, the weight of responsibility she bore on her shoulders. "It's just me and my little brother," she confessed during one of their late-night chats while closing the diner. "Mom works 2 jobs, and we do what we can to help. It's tough, but we manage." Jack nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. "I can't imagine how hard that must be. You're doing a lot for him." Emily smiled, but he could see the flicker of exhaustion in her eyes. "You know, sometimes I wonder if it's enough. I just want him to have a better life than I did." "Do you ever think about what you want?" Jack asked, his voice low. She paused, contemplating. "I guess I want to be happy, to have a little more time to enjoy life. But right now, it's all about survival." Jack felt a familiar ache in his chest. He yearned to share his own truths, to explain that his life was not what it seemed, but he held back. What would she think of him, a millionaire pretending to be just like her? The fear of losing her friendship kept him silent. One evening, as they both cleaned up the diner after a particularly busy shift, Jack glanced around, noting the faded decor and the cluttered tables. "How about we take a break from all this?" he suggested. "There's a local fair coming up. Would you like to go with me?" Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "You want to go to a fair? Like the county fair?" "Why not? I've never really experienced one, and it sounds fun. Plus, I'd love to see you outside of this diner." She laughed, the sound brightening the dimly lit space. "Well, when you put it that way, how can I refuse? But you better be ready for a lot of walking, fried food, and games." "Fried food sounds perfect. I'm in," he replied, feeling a thrill of excitement at the prospect of spending more time with her. The night of the fair arrived, and Jack could hardly contain his enthusiasm. He dressed simply, opting for a clean pair of jeans and a casual shirt, wanting to blend in rather than stand out. As he approached the fairgrounds, the sounds of laughter, music, and the enticing aroma of popcorn and cotton candy enveloped him. It was a vibrant tapestry of life, and he felt a rush of anticipation. Emily greeted him with an infectious smile, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail, and she wore a simple sundress that danced around her knees. "Hey, you made it!" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Couldn't miss it. You look amazing," he complimented, and he meant it. She radiated warmth and joy, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he belonged. They wandered through the fair, sampling various foods and playing games. Jack was surprised at how easily they fell into conversation, sharing stories and laughter. "I can't believe you've never had a funnel cake before," Emily exclaimed, her face smeared with powdered sugar after taking a bite. "This is a must." "I'll have to change that," he replied, grinning as he took a piece from her hand, mirroring her gleeful expression. As they moved from ride to ride, Emily's laughter was like music to his ears. They shared stories of their childhood, and Jack found himself revealing bits and pieces of his life, though always carefully curated. "I spent a lot of time outdoors as a kid," he told her, as they watched a group of children play tug-of-war. "My parents thought it was essential for me to learn how to rough it a bit." "Roughing it? You? I can't imagine that," she teased, nudging him playfully. "You look way too polished." "Polished? Me?" Jack chuckled. "I assure you, I've had my share of scraped knees and dirty clothes. It's just been a while." As the evening progressed, they found themselves standing in front of a Ferris wheel, the colorful lights twinkling against the night sky. "How about we give that a try?" Jack suggested, his heart racing at the thought of being so close to her. "Only if you promise not to scream like a little kid," she joked, and he laughed, playfully rolling his eyes. "I'll try my best to keep my cool," he promised, though he knew heights were not his favorite thing. They climbed into a gondola, and as the wheel began to turn, Jack felt a mix of exhilaration and nervousness. The view from the top was breathtaking, the fairgrounds sprawling beneath them like a sea of lights. He glanced at Emily, who was leaning over the edge, her face alight with wonder. "Isn't it beautiful?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It is," he replied, captivated not just by the view, but by her joy. "But you know what makes it even more beautiful?" "What's that?" She turned to him, her expression curious. "You," he said softly, his heart pounding as he spoke the truth that had been swirling inside him. Emily blinked, taken aback for a moment before a shy smile crept onto her lips. "You really know how to make a girl feel special, don't you?" "I mean it," he insisted, his gaze unwavering. "I've never felt this connected to anyone before. You've opened my eyes to a world I didn't know I was missing." Her cheeks flushed, and for a moment, they sat in silence, the world around them fading away. Jack felt drawn to her, the urge to reach out, to close the distance between them growing stronger. The ride came to an end, and as they stepped off, Emily's laughter echoed in his ears. They spent the rest of the evening walking through the fair, playing games and sharing dreams, each moment deepening their bond. But as they headed back to the diner, Jack's excitement was tinged with apprehension. Tomorrow, she had invited him for dinner at her home, a place he had only imagined from her stories. Would he be able to keep up the charade? Would she ever see him as anything more than just a friend? As they reached the diner, the neon sign flickered behind them, casting a warm glow over their faces. Emily turned to him, her expression earnest. "Thanks for tonight, Jack. I had so much fun." "Me too, Emily. I really did," he replied, his heart racing at the thought of what lay ahead. They stood close, the air thick with unspoken words. Jack knew that the next step would either solidify their friendship or change everything forever. As Jack Thompson approached Emily Parker's modest home, a wave of uncertainty washed over him. The evening air was cool, a stark contrast to the warmth radiating from the small, inviting house. It was a simple structure, with a few flower pots on the porch and a flickering light in the kitchen window. Yet to Jack, it felt like a different world, one where he was an intruder. He took a deep breath, adjusted his worn-out shirt, and knocked on the door, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Emily answered almost immediately, her smile brightening the evening. "Jack, you made it!" she exclaimed, stepping aside to let him in. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Jack couldn't help but smile back, though he felt a knot tightening in his stomach. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," he replied, trying to sound casual. As he stepped inside, he was greeted by the smell of something delicious wafting from the kitchen. The modest interior was filled with family photos and the soft hum of conversation. Emily's family was gathered around the dining table, and their eyes turned to him as he walked in. "Everyone, this is Jack," Emily introduced, her voice brimming with pride. "He's been a regular at the diner." "Nice to meet you, Jack." Emily's mother, a warm woman with kind eyes, waved him over. "Come, join us. We were just about to start dinner." Jack felt a rush of warmth at the familial atmosphere. He took a seat at the table, trying to suppress his discomfort. He was used to extravagant dinners, catered by the best chefs, but this was different. This was real. He glanced around, observing the simple yet charming decor and the way Emily's family interacted with one another. They laughed easily, shared stories, and seemed genuinely happy to be together. As they began to eat, Jack listened intently, trying to absorb the essence of the moment. Emily's younger brother, Alex, was animatedly recounting a story about his latest soccer game, and Jack found himself genuinely amused. "You should have seen it, Jack. I scored the winning goal. The coach said I was the best player on the field," Alex declared, his eyes sparkling with pride. "Wow, that's impressive," Jack replied, feeling a warmth spreading in his chest as he saw the boy's enthusiasm. "Sounds like you're going to be a star." "Maybe one day I'll play in the big leagues," Alex beamed, his confidence evident. Emily's father chimed in. "As long as you keep your grades up, we'll support your dreams, son." There was a gentle firmness in his voice that spoke of love and responsibility, and Jack admired the way they balanced both in their family. As dinner continued, Jack found himself swept up in their stories. Emily's mother shared tales of her childhood, her struggles, and how they had managed to create a fulfilling life despite the challenges. Jack listened, enraptured, as he realized how different their lives were from his own. He felt a pang of guilt as he recalled the lavish parties and extravagant presents he had once considered normal. Here, at this table, was a wealth he had never understood before: love, laughter, and the strength of familial bonds. "Jack, what about you?" Emily's mother asked, turning her attention to him, her eyes curious. "Where are you from? Do you have any siblings?" Jack hesitated, the weight of his fabricated story pressing down on him. "Oh, I'm from a small town outside the city, just me and my mom. My dad, well, he's not around anymore," he said, his voice steady despite the lie. He could sense Emily's gaze on him, filled with compassion and understanding. "I'm sorry to hear that," Emily's mother said softly. "It must have been tough growing up without him." "It was, but my mom worked hard to give me everything I needed," Jack added, leaning into the story. "She taught me the value of hard work." He glanced at Emily, who was watching him with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. "What does she do?" Emily asked, her voice gentle. "She's a nurse," Jack replied, feeling a sense of pride swell within him. "She always put others first. I guess that's where I learned to appreciate the little things in life." "Sounds like you had a great role model," Emily said, her eyes sparkling. "I wish I could meet her." Jack felt a wave of warmth at her words. "Maybe one day," he replied, his heart racing at the thought. Would he ever be able to introduce her to the real him? The idea felt both thrilling and terrifying. As the meal drew to a close, Emily's mother brought out a homemade dessert, a warm apple pie, its sweet aroma filling the air. "I hope you have room for this," she said, placing a generous slice in front of Jack. "Are you kidding? I could never say no to pie." Jack grinned, the tension in his shoulders easing. He savored the first bite, his taste buds exploding with flavor. "This is amazing. You're a fantastic cook," he praised, his enthusiasm genuine. "Thank you, Jack. It's a family recipe," Emily's mother beamed, clearly pleased. Jack could see the pride in her eyes, and it made him realize how much he'd taken for granted in his own life. As they finished dessert, the conversation shifted to lighter topics: favorite movies, music, and childhood memories. Jack felt a growing sense of belonging, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Emily was radiant, her laughter brightening the room, and Jack couldn't help but admire her. She was everything he had ever wanted: kind, funny, and genuine. "Jack, you should join us for our game night on Saturday," Alex suggested enthusiastically. "We always have a blast." "Game night?" Jack echoed, his heart racing at the invitation. "That sounds like fun. I'd love to join." Emily's eyes lit up at his response. "It's a tradition. We play everything from board games to card games. Just be prepared to lose," she teased, a playful glint in her eyes. "Oh, I'm not worried. I'm pretty competitive," Jack shot back, grinning. The playful banter felt so natural, so effortless, and he reveled in the connection he was forming with Emily and her family. As the evening drew to a close, Jack felt a mix of emotions. He was grateful for the warmth of their hospitality, but also painfully aware of the secret he was keeping. They had welcomed him into their home, shared their lives with him, and yet he was lying to them. The thought weighed heavily on his conscience. "Thank you for a wonderful evening," Jack said sincerely as he stood to leave. "I had a great time." "Come back soon, Jack," Emily's mother called after him, her smile radiant. "I will, I promise," he replied, stepping out into the cool night air. As he walked away from the house, he felt a strange sense of longing. He had entered their world, filled with love and laughter, yet he was still an outsider. The truth loomed over him like a shadow, and he knew that eventually he would have to confront it. As he made his way home, Jack's mind raced. He had never felt this way about anyone before, and it terrified him. He was falling for Emily, and the thought of losing her because of his deception was unbearable. How could he ever tell her the truth? Would she understand, or would she feel betrayed? The night deepened around him, stars twinkling above as if mocking his turmoil. Jack felt lost in his thoughts, torn between the life he had always known and the new reality he was beginning to cherish. He knew he had to make a choice soon, but for now, all he could do was hold on to the memory of that evening, of laughter, warmth, and the undeniable connection he felt with Emily. Jack Thompson sat in his apartment, the sleek lines of modern decor contrasting sharply with the disarray of his thoughts. He stared out the window, watching the city lights flicker as dusk fell. The bustling streets below were filled with people going about their lives, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing in his heart. He picked up his phone, contemplating whether to call Tyler. It was a decision he had been wrestling with ever since he met Emily Parker. "Hey, man," Tyler answered, his voice a familiar comfort. "What's up?" Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his secret pressing down on him. "It's about Emily. I think I'm falling for her, Ty, but I don't know how to tell her the truth." "Wait, are you serious? You haven't told her yet?" Tyler's tone shifted from casual to concerned. "You know you have to, right? This is big." "I know," Jack replied, running a hand through his hair. "But what if she hates me? What if she thinks I was just playing her? I've been lying about who I am for weeks." "You've been lying about your wealth, not about your character," Tyler pointed out. "From what you've told me, she likes you for who you are, not your bank account. But you can't keep this from her, Jack. It's not fair to her." "But what if she can't see it that way?" Jack felt his chest tighten. "She comes from a humble background. I'm a millionaire, and I've been pretending to be someone I'm not. What if she feels like I've deceived her? Look, the longer you wait, the worse it will be. If she finds out from someone else, or, heaven forbid, through a gossip column, it'll blow up in your face. Just be honest with her." "You owe her that much," Tyler urged, his voice steady, a reminder of the friendship that had always grounded Jack. Jack sighed, looking out at the horizon where the sun dipped below the skyline. "You're right. It's just terrifying." Tyler chuckled softly. "You're a billionaire. You've faced worse. Just think of it this way. Would you rather risk losing her by telling the truth, or lose her because she finds out the hard way? Be brave, man." After hanging up, Jack felt a mix of resolve and dread. He needed to talk to Emily, to lay everything bare. But the thought of her disappointment was enough to make his stomach churn. The next day, he headed to the diner, his heart racing with the weight of unspoken truths. As he entered the familiar establishment, the bell above the door jingled, and Emily looked up from behind the counter, her smile brightening the room. She was in her usual work attire, a simple white blouse and jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. She looked effortlessly beautiful, and Jack felt a warmth spread through him at the sight. "Jack," she greeted enthusiastically, wiping her hands on her apron. "You're just in time for the lunch rush. What can I get you?" "Just a coffee for now," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "But I need to talk to you about something important." Emily raised an eyebrow, concern flickering in her eyes. "That sounds serious. Is everything okay?" Jack nodded, though he felt anything but. "Yeah, it's just, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want to be honest with you." As she poured his coffee, he noticed how her hands moved with practiced ease, her focus entirely on him. "You can tell me anything, Jack. You know that, right?" "Yeah, I do," he said, his heart pounding. "It's just complicated." Emily set the cup in front of him, leaning against the counter. "Complicated how?" Taking a deep breath, Jack decided it was now or never. I've been lying about who I am. I mean, not about my feelings for you, but about my life. I'm not just some random guy. I'm wealthy. My family owns a big business." The playful look in Emily's eyes faded, replaced by confusion. "What do you mean? You're joking, right?" Jack shook his head, his heart racing. I'm serious, Emily. I came here to understand the world better, to connect with people like you, but I've been pretending to be someone I'm not. Silence enveloped them, and Jack could see the gears turning in Emily's mind. You're telling me you're not really a struggling guy trying to make it? She asked slowly. No, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to escape my life and learn what it's like to be normal? Emily interrupted, her voice tinged with disbelief. Jack, you're not just a regular guy. You're a millionaire. He cringed at the way she said it, as if it were an accusation. I know how it sounds, but I didn't want my money to define who I am or how you see me. I wanted to be just Jack. But you're not just Jack. You're... She paused, her eyes narrowing as realization dawned on her. You're the heir to the Thompson fortune, aren't you? Jack sighed, feeling the weight of her disappointment. Yes, but please listen. I came here to escape, to find someone genuine. You're genuine, and I didn't want to ruin that by throwing my wealth in your face. Emily stepped back, her expression shifting from confusion to hurt. So you've been lying to me this whole time? Everything we talked about, everything we shared, was it all a lie? No, not everything. My feelings for you are real, he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. But how can I trust anything you say now? She shot back, her voice trembling with emotion. You've built this entire relationship on a foundation of lies. Jack felt his heart shatter at her words. I never meant to deceive you. I just wanted to understand life from your perspective. I thought if I pretended, maybe I could... Maybe you could what? She interrupted, her voice rising. Maybe you could play the part of the poor guy while dating a waitress? Is that it? Emily, please, he said, reaching out, but she stepped back, shaking her head. I need time to think, she said firmly, turning away from him. Jack watched helplessly as she walked away, the distance between them growing with each step. He stood there, the weight of his secret now a crushing reality. He had risked everything for a chance at love, and now he might lose it all. The diner around him faded into a blur as he processed the consequences of his choice. The laughter and chatter of patrons felt distant, as if he were in a bubble, isolated from the world. Jack lingered for a moment, longer, hoping for a sign that Emily would turn back, that she would understand. But as she disappeared into the kitchen, he knew he had made a grave mistake. The truth had set him free, but it had also chained him to a painful reality, one where the woman he cared for was slipping away from him, and all he could do was watch. Jack stood at the edge of the diner's parking lot, watching as Emily slipped inside, her shoulders slightly hunched as if the weight of the world rested upon them. The vibrant neon sign flickered above, casting a glow that reflected the turmoil within him. He felt utterly lost, a stranger in a life he had once thought he understood. The laughter and chatter within the diner felt distant, as if he were trapped in a glass bubble, separated from the reality he had come to cherish, if only for a brief moment. Jack! Tyler's voice broke through his reverie. He approached with a concerned look, sensing the storm brewing inside his best friend. You've been quiet since everything happened. Jack's jaw tightened as he recalled the confrontation with Emily. Her eyes, usually filled with warmth, now burned with betrayal. I messed up, Ty. I should have told her the truth before things got deep. Tyler shook his head. You were trying to connect with her on a real level. I get it, but you have to face the music. She deserves to know who you are. But does she? Jack replied, frustration lacing his voice. What if she sees me as just another rich kid who thinks he can play at being poor? She was so genuine, and now... He trailed off, his thoughts spiraling. I don't want to be that guy. I thought I could be someone else for once. Tyler placed a reassuring hand on Jack's shoulder. It's hard, man, but if you really care about her, you need to show her that side of you. You can't hide forever. You owe it to her to be honest. Jack nodded slowly, his heart heavy. I know, but how do I even begin to fix this? As the days turned into a blur, Jack's attempts to reach out to Emily became increasingly desperate. He waited outside the diner, hoping to catch a glimpse of her during her shifts. Each time she passed him, her gaze was averted, her expression a mixture of hurt and indifference. He was losing her, and with each rejection, he felt the walls he had built around his heart tightening. One evening, he decided to leave a note for her, hoping it would convey the sincerity of his feelings. He penned down his thoughts, pouring out his heart onto the crumpled piece of paper. Emily, I can't express how sorry I am for not being honest. You mean more to me than I thought possible, and the last thing I wanted was to hurt you. I want to explain everything, but I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just hope you can see how much I care. Jack. He slipped the note under the diner's door, his heart racing as he stepped back. The weight of uncertainty settled on his shoulders like an unwanted cloak. Would she even read it? Would it matter? Meanwhile, Emily was trying to find her footing in the aftershock of the revelation. Her heart ached with the memories of their laughter and shared moments, now tainted by the truth of Jack's identity. She felt foolish for believing in the fairy tale he had painted, a beautiful illusion that had shattered in mere seconds. As much as she wanted to move on, she found herself replaying their moments together, the warmth of his smile, the gentleness in his eyes. Em, you okay? Sarah, her co-worker, asked one afternoon as they wiped down tables. You've been quiet lately. Emily forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just a lot on my mind, you know. Is it about that guy, Jack? I saw him hanging around the diner the other day. Emily sighed, her heart heavy. Yeah, it's complicated. He's not who I thought he was. I don't know if I can trust him again. People make mistakes, Em, but if he really cares, he'll do anything to make it right. Maybe give him a chance. Emily shook her head, the bitterness rising within her. How can I? It feels like he used me to escape his life. What was it all for? Later that evening, as she prepared to leave the diner, Emily's mother called her with news that sent a jolt of anxiety through her. Honey, the bills are piling up. I don't know how we're going to manage this month. I know, Mom. I'm looking for extra shifts, Emily replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. Maybe I can find another job. Just be careful. Times are tough, and I don't want you to overwork yourself. As she hung up, an unfamiliar number flashed on her phone. Hesitantly, she answered. Hello? Emily Parker? This is Mark from Northbridge Enterprises. We've reviewed your application, and we'd like to offer you a position in our team. Emily's heart raced. This could be the opportunity she desperately needed. Really? Thank you. But there must be some mistake. I haven't had an interview. We were impressed by your resume and your experience. We think you'd be a great fit for our marketing department. Can you come in tomorrow for further discussion? Of course, thank you so much. Emily hung up, a mix of excitement and caution swirling inside her. She had to take this chance, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As she walked home, her thoughts drifted to Jack. The pain of his betrayal still gnawed at her, but a part of her missed him. She had to focus on her family and securing her future. She couldn't afford to get caught up in a whirlwind of emotions again. Meanwhile, Jack tried to regain some semblance of normalcy in his life. He threw himself into work at his father's company, yet his mind often wandered to Emily. The pressure from his family to take over the business felt suffocating. They didn't understand his need for authenticity, for real connections. Jack, you need to step up, his father said one morning, glaring at him over the breakfast table. You're not a child anymore. It's time to take responsibility and show the world what our family is capable of. I know, Dad, but I want to make my own path, Jack replied, his voice steady, but a simmering frustration bubbled beneath. It's not all about the family legacy. His father scoffed. You don't get it, do you? This is about preserving our reputation. You have a responsibility to uphold the family name. Don't waste your potential. Jack pushed back his chair, standing up abruptly. What about my happiness? What about the people who actually matter? His father's expression hardened, and Jack felt a chill run down his spine. You will do as you're told. This is not a negotiation. As he left the table, Jack felt the weight of his family's expectations pressing down on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was losing himself in the process. Days passed, and the tension between Jack and his family grew. He dove deeper into his work, but every success felt hollow without Emily by his side. He needed to find a way to make things right, to show her that he was not just the wealthy heir she had come to resent. Little did he know that fate was about to intervene in ways he could never have anticipated. The world around him was shifting, and the choices they both made would lead them down a path neither had expected. Jack Thompson sat in the dim light of his high-rise apartment. The city sprawled beneath him like a canvas of flickering lights and distant sounds. Despite the opulence surrounding him, a heavy weight settled in his chest. He had just learned that Emily Parker, the waitress who had unknowingly captured his heart, had taken a job with a rival company, a decision that was about to intertwine their fates in ways he never anticipated. His family's influence loomed large, and he felt a sense of dread wash over him as he pictured the unethical practices that could potentially ensnare her. Jack's mind raced. He could no longer stand by and watch as his family's empire threatened the very person who had brought so much joy into his life. He picked up his phone, his fingers hovering over Tyler's name, but instead, he dropped it back onto the table, the thought of discussing it making him feel weak. This was his battle to fight. He needed to confront his family. The next day, Jack arranged a family meeting. The opulent dining room of the Thompson estate was filled with the scent of polished wood and expensive air fresheners. His parents, Richard and Margaret Thompson, sat at the head of the table, their expressions a blend of curiosity and concern as Jack entered the room. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation that lay ahead. "Jack, what's this about?" Richard asked, looking up from his tablet, where he was no doubt reviewing the latest financial reports. "I need to talk about the company," Jack began, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "It's about the new job Emily took with Harrington Industries." Margaret raised an eyebrow, her interest piqued. "Emily, the waitress you've been spending so much time with?" Jack nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and embarrassment as he thought of her. "She's not just a waitress, Mom. She's a hard-working woman who deserves respect." Richard leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Where are you going with this, son?" "I've heard rumors about the way we do business, Dad. I can't stand by while our practices could harm her or anyone else." Jack's heart raced as he spoke, his resolve strengthening with each word. "We've been involved in some unethical dealings, and I want to put a stop to it." Silence enveloped the room. Richard's expression darkened, and Margaret's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're talking about our livelihood, Jack," Richard exclaimed, his voice rising. "You don't understand the stakes involved here. This is how we maintain our status, our power." "No, Dad," Jack shot back, his voice firmer now. "This is about doing what's right. Emily deserves better than to be a pawn in our games. She's struggling to make ends meet, and I won't let her be hurt because of our greed." "You think you can just stand up to your father and change everything?" Richard's voice dripped with disdain. "You're naive if you think you can take on the industry, let alone our family legacy." Jack felt a fire ignite within him. "I'd rather lose everything than let my family's name destroy someone innocent. I'm willing to risk it all for her." Margaret, usually the peacekeeper, looked at Jack with a mixture of disappointment and concern. "Jack, you're being rash. You don't know the full implications of what you're suggesting. You can't just walk away from the family's responsibilities." "I can't be a part of this anymore," Jack stated, his voice unwavering. "This isn't just about the business. It's about people's lives. I've seen the impact of our decisions on those less fortunate, and I won't be complicit any longer." Richard's expression hardened. You have no idea what you're asking for, Jack. You're throwing away your future for a girl you barely know. Jack clenched his fists, the tension palpable. I know her better than I know my own family. I care about her, Dad. And if that means stepping away from the company, then so be it. After a moment, Richard leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. You think you can just walk away? You'll be disowned. You'll have nothing. Then so be it, Jack replied, his voice resolute. He could feel the weight of his decision settling in his chest, but it was a weight he was willing to bear. Richard's gaze bore into him. You'll regret this, Jack. You're making a huge mistake. But Jack stood firm, feeling a sense of freedom wash over him as he declared, I refuse to be a part of something that harms others. I'll take my chances on my own terms. As he turned to leave the room, he felt a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. He had chosen love over wealth, integrity over deceit. Now he had to find Emily and explain everything. Later that day, Jack found himself standing outside the diner where it all began. His heart raced as he pushed through the glass doors, the familiar sounds of clattering dishes and laughter greeting him. He scanned the room, his eyes searching for Emily. She was behind the counter, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her smile warm as she served a group of regulars. Hey, Emily, Jack called, his voice cutting through the diner's noise. She looked up, a frown appearing on her face as she wiped her hands on her apron. Jack, I didn't expect to see you here. I need to talk to you. It's important, he urged, his heart pounding. Emily's expression shifted, worry etched across her features. Is everything okay? Not exactly, he said, stepping closer. Can we talk somewhere private? She nodded, glancing around before leading him to a small booth in the corner. Once seated, Emily folded her arms, her brow furrowed in concern. What's going on? Jack took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. I found out about your new job with Harrington Industries. Emily's eyes widened. You know about that? Yes, and I want you to know that I'm truly sorry for what's happening, he said, urgency lacing his words. I've been meaning to tell you the truth about my family, about the company. They're involved in some corrupt practices. Emily's expression softened, confusion flickering across her face. Jack, what do you mean? I thought that was a good opportunity for me. It's not, he replied, his voice earnest. It could hurt you. I confronted my family about it today. I can't let them use your job as a means to undermine you or anyone else. Emily's eyes searched his, and Jack could see the conflict in her gaze. Why are you doing this? You could just walk away and let it go. Because I love you, Emily, he said, his voice steady, and I refuse to let my family's greed hurt you. You deserve better than that. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she absorbed his words, her heart racing. You love me? Yes, he affirmed, reaching across the table to take her hand in his. I've never felt this way about anyone before. I was afraid to tell you because I didn't want to lose you, but I can't keep hiding who I am, and I can't let you suffer because of my family's choices. Emily looked down at their intertwined hands, her heart torn. But what will happen to you? You're risking everything. I'd rather have nothing than be part of something that harms people, Jack replied earnestly. I'm ready to start anew, and I want that future to be with you. As the weight of his confession settled in the air between them, Emily finally met his gaze, her expression softening. Jack, I don't want you to lose your family or your future. I'd trade it all for a chance to be with you, he insisted, squeezing her hand gently. I believe we can make a difference together. We can build something good, something honest. Emily's heart swelled with emotion, and she found herself enveloped in the warmth of his sincerity. I don't know what the future holds, Jack, but I appreciate you being honest with me. Jack felt a surge of hope as he leaned closer, his voice a whisper. Let's face it together. We can make it work. Tears streamed down Emily's cheeks as she nodded, her heart racing with possibilities. Okay, together. In that moment, everything shifted. The weight of their past began to lift, replaced by the promise of a new beginning. They embraced, the warmth of their connection igniting a spark that would guide them through the challenges ahead. Jack's courage to be honest and stand against his family's corruption had opened the door to a future filled with love, hope, and the chance to create a legacy of their own.